Hello, Phil.
Yeah, good evening.
Hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. Pretty good.
Good to see you. Over to you, Phil. And you know how to start your slideshow. If you struggle, let me know.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mo. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along, attending this webinar, and we'll get launched and see what happens. So I've got various things I want to talk to you about. I've got a few artifacts I want to show you, and there's some various slides and stuff which will speak for itself. So I'll just start here. So this is Papua New Guinea. It's actually well known as the land of the unexpected, and there's a good reason for that, because things have a habit of not going as you would expect. The logistics in New Guinea are awkward, let's say. One of the big problems is the airlines. They tend to be somewhat unreliable, so you have to factor this stuff into account. And there's always a way around it, but it can be a bit annoying trying to get it all sorted out. But having said that, it's a wonderful place to go. It's not like, I don't think it's like anywhere else I've ever been, and it's got so many surprises and so many wonderful birds. Well, Mohit very kindly gave a very long introduction about me, and here's just some pictures about the books that I've done. The most recent one is the blue one on the top left here, and this is the Lynx Field Guide to the Birds of New Guinea, the Bismarck Archipelago, and Bougainville. And that's actually just got printed last week, so it's literally hot off the presses. And this is the second edition. It's been completely revised, and the taxonomy has been updated, and it's got a very comprehensive coverage of the whole of the New Guinea region, which is kind of nice. So I hope it'll be a valuable book to have. Moving through, this is a map of Papua New Guinea. Now Papua New Guinea was originally it was an Australian, British territory. It was the southern part was belonged to Britain, and the northern part was German territory. And then in 1905, the British handed over the southern part to the Australians, and it became a trust territory, basically. And then with the advent of World War I, German New Guinea very quickly was taken over by the Brits and the Australians, and it became subsumed into the territory of Papua and New Guinea. The Australian territories were taken over completely very early on, in fact in 1914, very early on. The provinces today, New Guinea became independent in 1975, so it's had quite a long time to sort of get itself on its own 2 feet. It's got this is a map of I think this is these days, and it goes right the way across down to Milne Bay province in the far east. And there's some important island provinces. There's New Britain is this big island where I'm waving this cursor, West New Britain and East New Britain. And then there's a lovely island to the north of that called New Ireland. And then there's Manus over here. And all of these have their own endemic species. I think Manus has got 11 endemics. New Ireland's got 10. New Britain's got about 20. And then there's Bougainville over here. Now, Bougainville is an interesting one because it's technically still part of Papua New Guinea, but it basically attempted to secede in the late 1990s, and there was a very unpleasant and unfortunate civil war was fought. It was brought to a ceasefire in the early part of this century, and it's gradually been calming down, and there's now a provincial government administration, and there was actually a referendum held 2 years ago during which the people of North Solomons, Bougainville in other words, voted for independence. So at some point in the next few years, not quite sure when this is going to happen, they will become a fully independent country and no longer a part of Papua New Guinea. It was always a bit of an uneasy fit because it belongs more to the Solomons. They're more sort of Polynesian type people than the Papua New Guinea ones, and the cultural links are mostly with the Solomons rather than with the New Guinea links. So the Bougainville is an interesting one, and it is possible to visit now, but it's a difficult destination because the logistics are still rough and ready. Things are not quite settled properly yet. it's early days. So if you're feeling very adventurous, you can certainly go to Bougainville, and there are some wonderful birds, and they're very little known, but it's not a mainstream tourist destination. Now, coming back to mainstream tourism, well, in New Guinea, most people concentrate on the mainland, and essentially you really want to do a suite of habitats. You want to go to the lowlands, the tropical lowlands, you want to go to the hill forest, and then you want to go to the highlands. And each of those habitats has its own particular set of species. And within each of those habitats, there are different birds of paradise. So the birds of paradise are a big flagship for New Guinea as a whole. There's actually 45 species globally. And in New Guinea, I think there's 42. For New Guinea as a whole, I think there's 40 overall, and Papua New Guinea's got about 35 of these. So it's a very good destination for birds of paradise. Well, speaking of birds of paradise, this is one of the largest of all the birds of paradise, and this thing is called a brown sicklebill, and that's a male brown sicklebill, and it's something like a meter long. That's a huge, great thing, and it's got this beautiful pale eye, and it's usually quite shy, but there is one lodge called Kumul Lodge in Enga province, and they have a feeder set up there. And this particular species comes to feed on the feeder. And if you're lucky, you might get to see a male. Though I have to tell you, this is one of the New Guinea stories. This male had been coming there for maybe 3 or 4 years, and it was like an old friend. You go, and oh, there he is, great, wonderful to see him. And then one day, they had a visitor come in who was a tribal person that wasn't familiar with what was acceptable and what's not acceptable. And he just happened to have a catapult with him. So, of course, why not? He took a shot at the bird, and he hurt it, and it disappeared. So it had a rather sad ending, that story. But again, that's New Guinea for you. And the lodge people expressed their displeasure in no uncertain terms, and hopefully lessons have been learned. It was just sheer bad luck, wrong place, wrong time. But that's what happened to that particular bird. Well, in New Guinea, it's got a very high number of bird species. There's something like 897 overall. And in Papua New Guinea, there's something like 118 endemic birds. And there are in the island as a whole, there are 7 endemic families. There's one called berry peckers and longbills, that's got 12 species. There's a wonderful bird called a wattled ploughbill, which is monotypic, there's 1 species. There's the tit-breasted berry peckers, and there's 3 species there, and one is in West Papua and the other 2 are in New Guinea. The satin birds, that's primarily in Papua New Guinea. The melon pitters, that's on both sides of the border. The mottled berry hunter, that's again on both sides of the border. And the blue-capped ifrit, also on both sides of the border. The border I'm talking about is the border with Indonesia, because the western part of the island of New Guinea is West Papua. It used to be called Irian Jaya, and it was taken over by the Indonesians in the early 1960s. The Dutch walked out, basically, and sort of left it to sort of fend for itself, and the Indonesians saw their chance, moved in, and they've had it ever since. So it's... officially, it's part of Indonesia, and it is also a wonderful place to visit. It is possible to go there. Just be careful where you go. It's not safe to go everywhere. This is a bit of shameless self-promotion. This is the new field guide that's just come out last week. This is the second edition of the New Guinea and Bismarck Archipelago Bougainville guide. And the bird on the front is one of the flagship birds for the island of New Guinea and Papua New Guinea in particular. It's the blue bird of paradise, and that is only found in Papua New Guinea. And it's a very special bird, and you can see it on some of the tours that we do. This striking bird to the right with a rather ragged-looking tail. That's called a ribbon-tailed astrapia, and again, that tail can be over 1 meter long. And it's extremely spectacular. And this one does come regularly to the feeders at Kumul Lodge. And I don't have any sad stories about horrible things happening to them there. So it's a very good place to see the ribbon-tailed astrapia. That's also a PNG endemic. It doesn't occur over the border. If you come to New Guinea, I mean, I've done a brief list here of important places that you can go birding. But as I mentioned earlier, really you want to do lowlands, hill forests, and highlands. So you'd start in Port Moresby. And there's a very nice national park near Port Moresby called Vararata. It's about a 45-minute drive out of Port Moresby, and it's got some very nice birds of paradise. You can go and see Regiana bird of paradise in display. You can see glossy-mantled manucode. You'll probably see crinkle-collared manucode. You may see magnificent bird of paradise. And there's a rather unusual one called the growling riflebird, which has got a very raspy call. And that's a PNG endemic. And it's a beautiful big bird with a great big bright blue breast shield. I'll show you a photograph of it later. All of these can be seen in Vararata National Park. Now, if you come to New Guinea, my advice is to make sure you go with reputable operators and make sure you've got good local guides, because these are your key to a successful tour. The good local guides have been doing it for a long time. They know what the birders are looking for. They know the peculiarities of the birding sort of mindset, and they're very good at finding things. And also very important here, they know what you can do and what you can't do. So some areas, trouble may flare up. You don't want to go there. So your local guides will know this. And essentially they're your passport to keeping you safe. They will not take you to dangerous areas. New Guinea, you hear all the horror stories. Oh, it's dangerous. Oh, we can't go there. It's much too dangerous. That's simply not true. If you go to places like London or Sydney, many areas there are quite dangerous as well. And Port Moresby is no different to that. So obviously you don't go walking around on your own. You don't carry your cameras and binoculars out in public. But once you're out of the city, in the bush, in the rural areas, it's a different story. And you'll be with your local guides, and you may have one of the overseas guides as well, and they know exactly what to do and where you can go. So I'd like to reassure you, it's got a bad reputation. It's people always, Australians in particular, oh, it's so dangerous to go there. Look, I've been there dozens of times, and it's very rare I've had any major issues. It's just things do go wrong. That things are unexpected. There are mishaps with flights or transport or something. But you can always, there's always a way around it. You can sort it out. So I want to reassure you, it's not an unduly dangerous place to visit. Do it the right way. Go with the local guides, go with the good people. You should have a great time. So this was, I mentioned earlier about the birds of paradise. Here you've got it. This is a Ragiana bird of paradise with those wonderful flank plumes all fluffed up. 33 of them live in Papua New Guinea, 7 in West Papua, 3 in Halmahera, and we've got 2 that only occur in Australia. So if you like birds of paradise, and they're one of the big tours for photographers, or big draws for photographers. And in the last, well, really since COVID, in fact, they've actually got themselves properly organized, and there are now several sites where there are proper photographic hides or blinds have been set up, and the people who've set them up know what's to be done for photographers to come and get photographs of birds of paradise. So I've been seeing some wonderful pictures coming from some of the sites. You may be familiar with a fellow called Dustin Chen. And he works a lot with a lodge called Magic Mountain in Enga province, and they've got some very good photographic hides set up there, which if you are interested, we can access those. There's also another fellow called Paul Yafisi, who's got some blinds set up quite close to Mount Hagen, and he's got bluebird of paradise, he's got Ragianas, he's got Laws's Parotia, and he's got the magnificent bird of paradise. So he's got some very nice, attractive species available at photographic hides. So if you're interested in doing this, give us plenty of notice, because we have to set this up and make sure that these sites are available at the right time. If you go over to Western Province, again, there's another very good local guide over there, and he's also, after many years of nagging, he's finally got it together to set up hides for several of the bird of paradise species. And he's got hides for the 12-wired bird of paradise. He's got the king bird of paradise, which is a very, very beautiful small one, which is pretty hard to photograph, but he's got blinds where you can attempt that. And he's up in the mountains, up near Tabubil. He's got places where you can see the Queen Carola's Parotia, which is one of those wonderful ones that does this strange dance with the skirts out. So there are blinds available for probably a dozen species of bird of paradise these days. What sort of tour do you want to do? Well, it depends on your interest. We're actually, Sicklebill Safaris, we do run a tour called PNG Endemic Families, and that's about a week long. And we essentially we base ourselves in Port Moresby and around the Mount Hagen area. And we'll go for all 7 species of the all 7 endemic families, all of which can be seen in these areas. And there's a very good chance you'll see them all, and you may get photographs as well. This is the blue-capped ifrit, which is it acts a bit like a nuthatch. It creeps up and down tree trunks, and picks around on mossy limbs and branches. And it's an unusual one because it's got this wonderful royal blue crown here. It's also one of the poison birds. You may have heard that in New Guinea there are poisonous birds. There's the pittihues are the ones. They're a bit like a shrike thrush or a bit like a whistler, and they're chestnut and black. So they're not consumed, but they are mildly toxic. And I believe that they actually get the toxin from some of the beetles that they consume, and the toxin comes from the beetle into the flesh and the feathers of the pittihues. And the ifrit also is a mildly toxic bird, strangely enough. Other tours, one I particularly like is PNG Birds and Culture. So you go and you see a lot of the local birds, and you see, many of the birds of paradise, some of the endemic families, all sorts of other interesting things. But there's also some very interesting cultural things to be done. There are 2 shows that take place in August. One is called the Mount Hagen Show, and the other one is called the Wabag Show. And at these shows, what happens is some cultural groups, dance groups, sing groups, performing groups come in from all over the country. So the Mount Hagen Show, for example, often has 90 to 100 different groups, and they come in a couple of days before the show and they get themselves ready. And then on show day, it's like a big parade. They march past, and you can go in. You can actually get right amongst them. You can take photographs. You can take pictures. And when they've all done their marching, they sort of sit down in the field, and then you can go in and you can talk to them and go up real close and take photographs. It's a fantastic photographic opportunity. Some of these costumes are simply unbelievable. I'm going to show you some photographs later in the presentation about what some of the things you can see on the cultural side, and it is quite wonderful, quite extraordinary, and it was designed to bring the country together, let the different tribal groups come and meet peacefully, not get into big fights and punch-ups and whatever. Come and meet peacefully, interact, and show each other's culture. And it's a way of sort of knitting the country together. And it's been running for, 30-odd years now, I think. And it's actually very good. Generally, there's not that many foreign tourists. Why are there so few foreign tourists? Well, the New Guinea reputation. Oh, it's dangerous to go there. It's not. The Hagen Show is a fantastic experience. You go there, and they're actually really pleased to see you, and they'll make you quite welcome, and they're pleased that you're interested to come and have a look at what they're doing, and they're happy to show you what is happening, what's going on. So I do recommend the Birds and Culture tour. That's a particularly interesting one. PNG Highlights, that visits 3 of the main areas. It goes to the west, the Fly River around Kiunga, which is lowland monsoon forest. It goes around Port Moresby. It does a bit in the highlands, and it's simply cherry picking, excuse me, some of the best sites. And you'll see a lot of birds on that, obviously. And then some of my clientele these days, including myself, are getting a bit long in the tooth. So we have a thing called Gentle New Guinea, which is aimed for people that are maybe not quite as energetic as they used to be, or they might be, their mobility is not so good. And one thing I often get asked is, do you think I can do this tour? And I will always make an assessment. I said, look, if you can walk a reasonable distance, you can get up and down off a bus, you don't have to do steep mountain climbs and stuff like that. It's not necessary. A lot of birding in New Guinea is simply from lodges or roadsides or reasonable trails. You don't have to push yourself. So gentle New Guinea is a real possibility. And so for people that are less mobile, it's not out of the question. It can be, we can set it up and design it for you. I should tell you a little tale here. There was a British birder, a very keen British birder, who unfortunately got shot in Guatemala, and he ended up in a wheelchair. And he was desperate to come to New Guinea, and he really wanted to see a King of Saxony bird of paradise. Now, King of Saxonies live up in the mountains, and generally to see a King of Saxony, you're going to have to climb up. There's there are one or two places where you might see one from the roadside, but you're not going to get a great close view. Anyway, we talked to our local guys there and said, this fella's coming. He really wants to get up there. Do you think you can do this for him? Said, oh, sure. Yeah, we're really strong. No, don't worry. We'll do it. So he came over, and they took him up they drove to the site and then got him off the bus, and they packed the wheelchair away. They physically carried him. They put him on their backs and physically carried him up the mountain. And they had a chair for him to sit on when he got up there, and he sat there, watched the King of Saxony, then they carried him back down. And they were really proud that they were so strong that they could do this. And he did it. It was wonderful. So it was a real success story. So they're very good like that. They like to try and help people, and they're very keen to show off, how strong they are and how powerful they are, which believe you me, they certainly are. So that was the endemic families, and I mentioned that tour already. We do a short tour for the PNG endemic tour, and it stays at 2 birding lodges in the Mount Hagen region. One of them is very comfortable. The other one it's what they call a landowner lodge. Now, landowner lodges, I quite like them. They're very simple. So you're not going to have air conditioning. You may not have hot water. It just depends on whether the power's running or not. But they're built of local materials. So it's like bamboo and rattan and thatch. And they're very nice, actually very nice looking. And I always quite enjoy staying in them. But if you like your creature comforts and you want your Western style hotel, this and this, you probably shouldn't do this particular tour at that particular lodge. But the other lodge is a very comfortable lodge. It's a very, very luxurious lodge near Mount Hagen. So if you can stomach 2 or 3 days of relative hardship, but some fantastic birds, and then have a really comfortable spot near Mount Hagen, that's a tour you could do. Birds and culture. Well, here we go. This is one of the famous groups. This is called the Asaro Mudmen, and he's got this phenomenal mask there. It looks quite scary. It's actually made of white clay. It's got these big teeth. It's got these big tusks coming out the nose. And what they do is they paint their bodies white, and they have very long bamboo fingernails. Now you may say, well, why on earth would people do this? Well, they came from a place in the highlands. It was very foggy and misty, rainy spot, and they were constantly getting attacked by the other tribes. They weren't a powerful tribe, and they were getting harassed by the other local tribes. And then some clever guy in the tribe decided there was a different way to tackle this. Now, New Guinea, they're quite superstitious about spirits and magic and witchcraft and all this sort of thing. So what happened was they covered their bodies with this white clay, and they put leaves and lichens and stuff all over, and they put on these very heavy, scary masks, great big bamboo fingernails. And then when they were attacked again, these guys came out of the huts, and they didn't run out. They came out moving very slowly and carefully. And they terrified the attackers. They took one look at this and boom, they were gone. These were spirits that were aiding these people, and it drove off the attackers. So the Asaro Mudmen became very famous for that. And they're now a big feature at the show. And when you see them, there may be like 20 of them there. And it genuinely is quite creepy, the way they move. And it's so sort of slow and careful. And they got these phenomenal looking mud masks and costumes. It really is quite atmospheric, to put it mildly. It's whoa, you can see why people got scared by that. That's the Asaro Mudmen. That's part of the birds and culture. These are your itineraries in New Guinea. They can range from a week, 21 days. Basically, we customize them. It depends how long you've got. Depends how much money you want to spend, of course. And I will say here that PNG is not an inexpensive place. It's never has been. It's always been sort of linked to Australian type prices. So it's not a cheap place. You're not going to get many bargains there, but you'll get a fair price. And what you do depends on your cash flow and your budget, basically. This particular PNG Highlights tour is very good for Birds of Paradise and is easily customizable. This is our black Sicklebill again. There he is. He's on the bird table. This is at Kummel Lodge. And this is the one I mentioned earlier. This is the one for people that are maybe older people or people that are less mobile. 7 to 14 days. It's relatively straightforward. It avoids steep, muddy trails, and it can be customized. So if you don't want to do a boat trip up the Fly River and attempt that, we can just leave that bit out. So it just depends what you want to do. So again, contact us, let us know what you're interested in, and we will tell you what it's like, and is it easy, is it difficult, and how it works. Coming away from the mainland, I mentioned those islands earlier. There's Manus Island, New Britain, New Ireland, and also the Huon Peninsula. Now, the Huon Peninsula, that's really a specialist one. That's primarily photographic, and it's going for the endemic birds of paradise. So there's the emperor bird of paradise, there's the Huon astrapia, and there's the Huon parotia. And those are the three, Wan's is parotia. Those are the three target birds of paradise, and that we actually have someone who sets up it's a camp, a simple camp, and they have blinds set up for those three bird of paradise species. So this is a real specialist one if you want to do it. The Huon Peninsula, which is on the north coast near a town called Ley. The islands are a quite different story. New Britain is actually a very comfortable, world-famous diving lodge called Walindi, and we stay at Walindi, and we use that as our base to travel around to the local area and go out to some of the very small islands offshore there. So New Britain is actually quite a comfortable destination. Manus, there's a reasonable hotel in a town called Lorengau, and you can see all that you want to see on Manus in, say, 3 days. So it's quite a pleasant tour. And my own particular favourite is in New Ireland, and mainly because it's not so well known as the others. And there's comfortable lodges in a town in Caviang in New Ireland. Is quite a comfortable place to stay, and you can use that as your base, and you can radiate out and go and see what's around and about on New Ireland. And as I say, there's about a dozen endemics on New Ireland. This is a plate from the new field guide, and there have been some new species found in New Guinea fairly recently. And the one I'm highlighting here is a thing called the satin berrypecker. It's the second from the bottom here. It's a black and white berrypecker. And the female is still undescribed, but I reckon she's going to look a bit like that one up top there, pretty similar to that, I suspect. And this one only lives way over in the far west in the Fakfak and Kumawa Mountains. It was described in 2020. So we've illustrated it in the book, and it shows that there are still new things in New Guinea. This is one of the great target. This is one of the wonderful birds. That's one of the endemic families, and this is the wattled ploughbill. And this is the male, and he's got these peculiar pink wattles like table tennis bats that hang down below his beak, and he's got quite a stout, chunky beak. And they're a bamboo specialist, so you need to get into the bamboo zone, and then with a bit of luck, you can find them. And it's a wonderful bird to see that, the wattled ploughbill. And this is another one. This is a star. And this is one you have to go over to Western Province. And the villagers have now got this organised. They've actually got several blinds set up. And you can go and sit in the blind, and you're looking over the bower. The bower is these stick things which are either side of the bird here. This is called an avenue bower. And the male will come in, and he will show off in the bower. And he likes to try and get the female to come and see how wonderful he is. And this one has a very curious display, because one of the things that happens is the pupil in this eye enlarges and contracts, so it gets bigger and smaller. So it's just extraordinary to see this bird where the eye is constantly changing shape because the pupil is getting bigger or smaller. It's just totally bizarre. I don't know of any other bird that does that. This is the flame bowerbird. It's a real sunburst bird, and there's very good photographic opportunities for that one. This is one called the crinkle-collared manucode, and as again here you can see this is at a feeder, so he's coming for a banana. And manucodes are one of the basal birds of paradise. They're one of the ancestral forms. They've got quite simple plumage. They're sort of iridescent black with red eye and different morphology, different head shape, different calls. This is the crinkle-collared, and you can see the neck feathers are kind of crinkled there. And he's got two little bumps on his forehead. It's like someone's banged him on the head. And he's got two bumps on his head. So this is the crinkle-collared manucode, and that's another one you can see around Kiunga especially. This is one of my great favorites. This is the rare one. This is the blue bird of paradise. Now, in terms of conservation, I think most of the birds of paradise are reasonably secure. Why are they secure? Because the island is pretty big. It's still got a relatively low population, and much of the habitat is still intact. And the reason it's intact is the mountains are very steep, the valleys are very steep, it's very difficult to access. There isn't a great road network. So most travel in New Guinea is by plane. You go by like a Twin Otter or Dash 8 or something like that, and you fly from town to town. So the habitat is pretty good. So most of the birds of paradise, I would say, are in reasonable state. The ones that are vulnerable, this is the bluebird of paradise, and he actually happens to live in the highlands of Papua New Guinea. And where he lives, unfortunately, is also a zone which is very favorable for human settlement. So there's a lot of disturbance and chopping down of forest and little farms going in. So his habitat's getting a bit of a workover. So the bluebird of paradise is under some pressure, let's say, and I'm quite concerned about it. I'm not quite sure what the future holds for this one, but it's one of the wonderful ones to see. And we have several spots where you can see them quite well. And one of my local guides does actually have a photographic blind set up for the display. Extraordinary thing, because the bird is basically upside down and makes this bizarre electronic pulsing noise. It's just quite unique. So the display of the bluebird of paradise is just incredible. This is the one that the fellow I mentioned in the wheelchair really wanted to see. This is King of Saxony bird of paradise, and this is a montane species, lives at high altitudes, and those you can see those two plumes sticking out. They're head wires, and they come out the back of the head, and they're sky blue above and blackish or brown underneath, and they're not like ordinary feathers. They're actually almost like plastic. They've modified. It's a really highly modified feather, so it almost looks like plastic. And I've seen one or two of the plumes that have been dropped by these birds, and it's quite amazing structure. And again, that's one you'll see on any tour to the Highlands. You can certainly get the King of Saxony bird of paradise. This is one of the lowland specials. This is the king bird of paradise. This is the smallest of all the birds of paradise. It's maybe 5-6 inches, 25-30 centimeters, and very small. Lives quite high in the trees, and a very wonderful coloration with that yellow bill and the bright, vibrant red plumage, white underparts. And he's actually got tail wires that you can't see here, but they hang down, and they got coppery discs on the end. So it's an extraordinary morphology for the king bird of paradise. Over in Kiunga, Western Province, there's good places to see that one. This is the famous one, the one that's probably the best known of all the birds of paradise. This is the Ragiana bird of paradise. And this is the one that figures on the coins and the stamps. And on the Papua New Guinea flag, there's a generic bird of paradise. And it's actually a Ragiana shape, which has been put onto the flag. And you can see these several areas. Around Port Moresby is quite good. There's a couple of very nice lecks up at Vararata National Park. So you can go in there. You need to get there early in the morning, so you want to be there no later than 7 o'clock. And hopefully, if it's not windy or not rainy, they'll be in full cry. And it's quite impressive. They're very, very noisy. and they fly from tree to tree, and they do this extraordinary display where they do like a moonwalk up the branches. So it's a wonderful sight, and that can be seen on most of the tours around the Port Moresby area, and also up in the Highlands. You can see them around Mount Hagen. That's a greater bird of paradise. That's related to the Regiana. This one's a special of Western Province. So if you go over to Kiunga, there's several very nice leks for the greater bird of paradise, but that's only over in the far west, Western Province. Oh, this is the one I was mentioning, the Parotias. And the Parotias are strange ones. They've got various head wires, and they have, when they do their display, they do like a ballerina skirt. So this pokes out around, and they do like a dance. They have a dance floor. So the dance floor is kept clear, and the birds will do this amazing strutting display on the dance floor. This is the Laws's Parotia, and that's one that you can see around Mount Hagen. This is the magnificent bird of paradise, and it's got this wonderful tail wires here that just bend out like a sickle shape, and it's very striking coloration. Notice the blue bill, blue legs and feet, and most of them have very distinctive calls. None of them are particularly musical. They're various degrees of harsh and discordant and just plain strange, and this one is no exception. But you can see these again around Mount Hagen, around Kummel Lodge. Good place to get them. This is one that's had a taxonomic makeover. It used to be called the superb bird of paradise. Then they decided it was actually more than one species. So now we have a greater, a lesser, and one right over in the west called the Vogelkop. So this is the greater Lophorina, or I like to keep the word superb there. So I'm calling it the greater superb Lophorina. It's a black bird about the size of a Eurasian jay, roughly. And it has this wonderful, very dark blue iridescent breast shield that pokes out. And they call early morning, late afternoon, and you can spot them in the casuarina trees. And they're a wonderful bird to see. And again, around Mount Hagen, very good place to see those. Ribbon-tailed Astrapia, I mentioned that earlier. This is the one with a tail more than a meter long, and a truly wonderful bird to see with great iridescence on this throat and breast shield. This is a rifle bird. Now, that's a strange one. Rifle bird. It's got nothing to do with nothing to do with rifles or guns. Apparently it was a regiment of riflemen around Brisbane in the 1820s had a blue uniform, and the local bird there, the local rifle bird down near Brisbane, gave the name to the name was taken from the blue uniforms of the soldiers. So rifle birds got their name from the blue uniforms of British colonial military in about the 1820s. This one is only in PNG. It's called the growling rifle bird, and it has a very strange growly call. And again, around Vararata near Port Moresby is a very good place to see this. This is the magnificent rifle bird. This is the one that's further west. It's also on Cape York, oddly enough. And again, it's a truly wonderful bird with a bright blue breast shield and a bit coppery necklace around there, and a very distinctive, very loud wolf whistle call. That's a wonderful bird to see. Lesser bird of paradise, again around Kummel Lodge and around Mount Hagen. Good place to see these. Brown Sicklebill, I've shown you those before, and this is the male again on the feeder. Princess Stephanie's Astrapia, that's another one of the very large birds of paradise, very long tail with sort of paddle-shaped tail feathers here. 12-wired bird of paradise, a strange one because it's not a terribly good photograph, I'm afraid, but he likes to climb up this pole and he'll sit on top, and then he'll call, and he calls early morning. And if you're lucky, a female may come in and check him out, and she also will climb up the pole, and then they'll investigate each other. And he's literally got 12 wires that poke out from the tail here. There's 12 very fine wires that poke out, hence the name 12-wired bird of paradise. And we have places to see that over in Western Province. Short-tailed Paradigalla, that's one of the strange ones, very short tail, Quite a difficult one to see, but there are a couple of lodges in the highlands where you can see this one. It's a very, very strange little distinctive genus of bird of paradise. This was a special bird up at Varirata a couple of years ago where there was actually a very visible nest of the New Guinea harpy or Papuan eagle. It's one of the special birds. Coming away from the birds for a little bit, this is the Koki Stilt village near Port Moresby. This is built out over the ocean, and it's quite a large village. There's several thousand people live in Koki Stilt village. This is one of the Mount Hagen show participants, and they get some wonderful costumes. As you can see here, this fellow's covered in mud, and he's got these little teeth all around here. So yeah, it's quite a sight. And here, another Mount Hagen show participant. This this big shell here is called a kina shell, and the local currency is called the kina. It's named after these shells which were used in trade back in the day, and the kina shell was one of the mediums of trade. And they like to wear bird of paradise plumes. This blue one with the dots you can see at the top here, that's the King of Saxony head plume, and our friend here has got one stuck into his hat just to add to his beautiful costume. The Hagen show again, and this one he's got his bow and arrow. New Guinea arrows are quite long. Actually, I want to take a little, want to show you if I can here. I'll just get myself one of my spears. I'm not sure you're going to be able to see this, but I'll hold it back a bit. This is it's a spear from New Guinea, and it's a man-killing spear, and it's got all these quills which are sticking out of the clay, and it's made from echidna quills, and it's tipped with a very sharp piece of pig bone. And I particularly like this one because it actually, you can take it apart. So if you want to, you put it in your hand luggage on the plane or something like that, you can take the thing apart, and it collapses apart. So it's a rather wonderful design. So that's a man-killing spear from the lowlands of New Guinea. I have to confess, I have quite a large collection of spears I've amassed over the years, and there are some wonderful different designs. There we go, skeleton man, again, designed to scare off enemies and put the fear up people with one of their very big wooden spears. With that on, it's instant headache. Oops. Sorry, I just missed one here. Here, this fellow's got himself all decked out with the local lichens and ferns and grass, and again, very striking. And these guys, these are the Wagi Valley dancers, and they've got various bird of paradise plumes here. These white ribbons, these come from the ribbon-tailed astrapias, and they've got the plumes of the sicklebills here. This is either brown or probably black sicklebill plumes, and these red ones here are Ragiana plumes, and on their forehead here they've got the breast shield of the superb Lophorina. So the bird of paradise plumes are very highly valued for human display purposes. So they actually harvest them, they collect them, and they look after them. They're not just single-use disposal. They're kept very carefully and used as long as they can be until they start to sort of lose their color or start to fall apart. So the feathers are highly valued, and there's a big market for feathers in New Guinea for cultural reasons. They're used for the dancers. And this is again a close-up, and here you can see some of the feathers on the head, and there are a lot of parrot feathers there. These are actually lorikeets. These are whole lorikeets, which are just mounted on their heads. And you've got more of these King of Saxony plumes there. And here's the superb Lophorina here. So it's rather wonderful, and a very elaborate makeup, quite fantastic. This is from the Hagen show. Going over into the west, this is the Fly River, one of the great rivers of New Guinea. And getting up and down there, it depends on the water levels, but it may be bit of a steep and muddy scramble. So what's happened here is the guys have made a very quick causeway, a stairway up the muddy bank, and they've got poles in to help people get up without falling into the river. So that's the Fly River over at Kiunga. What some of the local traditional homes there. This is the Waigani House of Parliament in Port Moresby, which is it's actually designed like a gigantic Sepik longhouse, modelled on a traditional design. This is a roadside birding stop, and you've got the mountains in the background. And we're looking here at montane grassland, some wetlands, some bogs, and this is the montane moss forest, which is a very rich habitat for many of the special birds of New Guinea. And that's the headwaters of the very famous Sepik River that rises in Enga province. And this is from a bridge, and you can look down, and this is where the Sepik actually rises, then heads down into the Arafura Sea, a few hundred kilometers away. And this is one of the traditional New Guinea houses. This is built of thatch and wood, and it's got like a grass roof. Notice that there's no chimney or no smoke hole. What happens is they build fires inside, and when you walk in, the place is full of smoke. And the reason it's done like that, it's to kill off insects and to help keep warm. And they don't actually make an opening for the smoke. So if you buy many New Guinea artifacts, they smell very strongly of smoke, and that's the reason, because the traditional houses are very smoky places. I hate to think what the pulmonary health is. It's be rather daunting, not good, I can tell you. And that's Port Moresby spreading out, becoming quite a large city these days. And New Guinea, the terrain extremely rugged, mountains and valleys, but very beautiful. And that was the Huon, that's on the north coast, I mentioned it earlier. And that's how you get around. This is one of the small planes they use. There's various different types. A Dash 8 is a common one, or a twin otter. They're frequently used for flights around the country. Reliability is very variable. Oh, and here's the school bus. These are the kids at Kiunga going off to school. So it's actually the school bus boat at Kiunga. And that is more or less it, I think. So I just realised I'm running out of time here, so I better stop here and stop my slides and come back. And I'll thank you very much for your time. I've got a few bits and pieces I would like just very quickly to show you. There's another spear just by my ear. There's another spear, and here is this is a cassowary bone dagger. And they're used, for defense purposes. They're also used to keep your money in. You can roll your kina up into a roll and stuff it down in the hole here, and it's a very good place to keep your cash. So it's a cassowary bone dagger, and quite a large beast. Anyway, so I guess I might hand back to Mohit and see if there's any questions. So thank you very much.
That was a real eye opener. Well, fantastic. When I was uploading it and I was going through it, I said, "Oh my God, it's going to be absolutely breathtaking." And it showed. So, Kim is asking personal safety. You say that you should go with the right guides because they will know where and
yes.
where you should not be.
Yes,
my question is, how do I find those that are trustworthy and the right guides? At the same time, also the guides that do not necessarily cost a very expensive or because they're well known. I wish there was a lot more focus on whether it is dangerous or not, because countries have a terrible reputation, and as a tourist in all countries, you naturally have to deal with the reputation the place has.
Yes, well, it is so important to make sure you've got reasonable people. So go through one of the companies, my own company, Sicklebill Safaris, or Field Guides, or BirdQuest, or Ornis. Any of those, they all run tours to New Guinea, and they all do usually a pretty good job. They generally know what's what and what's what's happening. One or two tales I could tell you, but I won't. But contact a reputable company, and that hopefully they will know what is happening. We have a network of guides across the country. We mentioned a guy called Daniel Wakra.
He's here.
Yeah.
He's here attending your talk.
Oh, good. Oh, hello, Daniel. Greetings.
Yeah,
I've actually given you a shameless plug. So yeah. He's very good. He's very good, and he does a very good job.
Yeah.
And he knows the local people, and he and I go back a very long way. He actually encouraged him to get started in the business. I reckon he earns more than I do these days, but anyway.
Yeah. But people can travel with you. You got tours going. So people who are living in Delhi or in India, or even people coming from the neighboring countries to the fair, will get a chance to talk to Rowan. If you're there, that'd be great. Otherwise, Rowan can easily give information. But I posted your email address for people to get in touch with you.
Excellent.
And a whole lot of photographers would want to make use of this opportunity. So that's one great way. Yeah. And then Sunil is going tomorrow, and he's asking, do you encounter leeches?
Yes, you do. In the lowlands around Kiunga, definitely, yes. What I generally do is I take sulfur powder. Sulfur powder is quite good. I put it into a sock and I beat myself. It sounds very strange, but you beat yourself with a sock full of sulfur powder. And it's almost like one of these Catholic things, but you bash yourself with a sulfur-filled sock, and it is quite good at repelling leeches. And also keep covered up, so do your boots up tight. Don't wear shorts, whatever you do. Keep covered up. Wear long sleeves. And also, when you pick your binoculars up, just check nothing has fallen into your eye cups. Because I had a client on one of the tours, and she's a little tale here. She's actually been quite difficult. And, I was thinking, oh, dear, this isn't going very well. And anyway, she came up to me in the forest and she had a leech on her eye.
Oh, no.
So I came up, this is at Kiunga. So I said, look, if you just keep still, I think I can get it. And she was ever so brave. She held her eye open and I reached in and I actually managed to get hold of it. And I pulled it off her eye. And after that, she was wonderful. We got on really well after that. It was like Androcles and the lion. It was amazing.
So that's dangerous too. You could lose your eye.
Well, I actually, oddly enough, there's a second part to that tale, because on that very same day, and this has never happened to me before or since, my local guide Samuel also got a leech on his eye. Same time, same place. It was just bizarre. And I had a doctor on the trip. The doctor said, oh, no, don't pull it off. Don't pull it off. I've got some stuff here. I'll put it in your eye. So he did, and nothing happened. So poor Samuel walked around all day with a leech on his eye, and he got back home, and I said, oh, this is ridiculous. So I said, what happened? He said, oh, I got someone to pull it off. I said, that's what I wanted to do right at the time.
I've had leeches in all sort of places, but never in my eye.
Oh, no. So be careful. So they are a nuisance. They can be quite common, especially in the wet tropics. But cover up, and I do recommend sulfur powder. That does really help. The insect sprays and stuff don't really work for leeches, but the sulfur powder, if you can get it, that's quite good. May raise questions at customs, of course, but just be careful. So, yeah.
Okay, good. So Gaurav is asking, is your cultural show included in your itineraries, or would you want to? One has to do it separately.
We do offer it every year. We're actually running it this year. It's a aside regular tour. We do that, but we can also, one of the things we can do is customize anything. So if you want to go and you may not want me or one of my guides, but you'd like to be put in touch with local guides, we're quite happy to do that. We do a lot of that actually. It's good for local people to get this income. Yeah.
Black-tailed pheasant pigeon. I know it's been seen again. Is it after 2022?
Yeah, it was rediscovered on. Well, that's the one on Ferguson Island. and Goodenough Island. Very difficult. I mean, I don't think any bird has actually seen that yet. But the other one, the mainland pheasant pigeon, that's possible to see that in Varirata if you're lucky. There were some very nice sightings there last year. So pheasant pigeon is possible. There's actually 4 different pheasant pigeons, but the one in PNG mainland, yes, there's a chance you could see it. It's not easy, but certainly at Varirata, they are seen fairly regularly.
Is it the black-nipped? Black-nipped,
No.
you're saying, is difficult to see.
Yeah, that's the one that's only on the islands, Ferguson, and I think it's Goodenough in the Louisiana. Right. That one, no birders have seen that. That's way up high, very difficult. I think that was done with camera traps and all that stuff. So it's almost unknown.
Well, Kim has certain questions about pricing, but I think it's best to take that separately. Kim, you can write to Phil. I posted his email ID and get in touch because, it varies. It depends on what your requirements are, and they can customize your tour. So we won't discuss pricing here because that's your own requirement, and that'll be dealt with separately.
Yeah. Thank you. That's good. Yeah.
And I think that's all for now. But friends, this webinar replay link will also come to you tomorrow after 24 hours. So you can download it if you like. And you can also, spread, you can post the link in your groups and let other people also hear Phil, what he has to say about PNG and his tours and the kind of experiences that you will come across if you go there. And I've also posted a link of Global Wildlife Fair just in case if you want to get a free pass and you'd be able to meet, his company, and Rowan will be there and he can answer your questions in person. Phil is going to be there at the Global Bird Fair also this month in about 10 days time. So if you're going to Rutland Water, you can meet Phil there and then discuss your tour if you like, and go on one of his trips with him. I think it's a fantastic presentation. I'm just going to put Daniel is here. He's saying Phil and Mohit, my long-time birding friends, thank you for your time presenting and broadcasting my beautiful country to the whole world. Thank you, Daniel. We had great talks when we met. I think it was in Manila or one of these places where we met together with Chris. Yeah, it was the International Ecotourism Fair. That's where you were with Chris. I have very, very fond memories of our meeting. So excellent. Good, Sunil. You'll have a great time. You're leaving tomorrow for PNG. You're going to have a great time. So enjoy yourself. And a lot of other friends will have questions to ask when they start posting. I will forward those questions to you with their email IDs, Phil, and then it'll be your call to take it up with them.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to everybody. So thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for making time for this one. Thank you. Thank you for catch you soon. Catch you in 10 days. I am looking forward to meeting you there.
Indeed. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.